The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
Hello and welcome to News 9. I'm Verghese Abraham. First up, let us take a look at what's happening on day 74 of the Israel-Hamas war. Let's get you the latest update from that war front. US is saying that it cannot support a reference to cessation of hostilities but might accept a call for suspension of hostilities. This is with regards to the words in the resolution that was supposed to have passed through the United Nations Security Council, but that has been a problem of concern. Meanwhile, the Gaza Health Ministry has said that 4 have been killed in Farah refugee camp and 19 Jabalia refugee camp as Israel launches attacks up and down the territory. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin arrived in Israel on Monday for talks expected to focus on Israel's eventual end to its high-intensity war in Gaza and transition to a more limited focused conflict, and sat down with his counterpart Yoav Gallant. Meanwhile, the CIA Director William J. Burns will meet in Warsaw on Monday with Israeli and Qatari officials for talks aimed at restarting hostage exchanges, according to U.S. officials. Israeli soldiers continue their operations inside buildings, firing weapons and flying drones. Video credit has been given by the Israeli army's handout. Meanwhile, Hamas says it remains open to any suggestions for a prisoner swap with Israel, but no talks will be held until Israeli bombardment of Gaza stops. Israel denied targeting the Catholic Church in Gaza Strip following reports that 2 women inside the church were killed by an Israeli sniper. With people and teachers uprooted and buildings destroyed, it is likely that many months before classes can in fact resume in Gaza for the children there. 19,088 is the number of Palestinians who have been killed in this war, and 7,729 are the number of children killed in the war. The scheduled vote for a resolution calling for a sustainable cessation of hostilities in Gaza has been postponed. The United States has raised objections to the wording and expressed a preference for a suspension of hostilities rather than cessation. The move follows growing divisions within the United States administration and concerns about perceived hypocrisy in its global stance on conflicts. The Arab countries are negotiating the text have indicated a willingness to accommodate U.S. concerns. This shift in the U.S. position is seen as an attempt to find common ground rather than outright vetoing resolutions, as witnessed in previous instances. Pressure has mounted on the U.S. after the United Nations General Assembly recent vote, where a vast majority called for urgent cessation of hostilities. The proposed resolution condemns all acts of terrorism and urges the unconditional release of hostages. The diplomatic maneuvering reflects frustration within the U.S. over the Israeli government's military tactics in Gaza. The move, if successful, signals a nuanced U.S. approach, highlighting the complexities surrounding the ongoing conflict. Now, we need to, in fact, see what would be the outcome of this as the negotiations are concerned over the wording of this document. Meanwhile, United States Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday took aim at Iran over Houthi attacks in shipping in the Red Sea area. The Red Sea attacks have showed the ability of Middle Eastern paramilitary forces backed by Iran to upset global trade at a time when Tehran and its proxies are positioning themselves against the United States and Israel. The U.S. Secretary of Defense has announced a new coalition of the willing for their protection for maritime commerce in Red Sea. The list of 10 participants includes the United States, United Kingdom, Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles, and Spain.
America's commitment to Israel is unwavering, and no individual, group, or state should test our resolve. So in the Red Sea, we're leading a multinational maritime task force to uphold the bedrock principle of freedom of navigation. Iran's support for Houthi attacks on commercial vessels must stop. Now, we'll continue to provide Israel with the equipment that you need to defend your country, Mr. Prime Minister, including critical munitions, tactical vehicles, and air defense systems. We'll continue to support Israel's mission to find and free all of the hostages. We must get more humanitarian assistance into the nearly 2 million displaced people in Gaza, and we must distribute that aid better. And we want to thank you for the recent initiatives that you've taken, Mr. Prime Minister. We applaud that, and hopefully that will enable us to move even more in.
Mounting attacks by the Iran-aligned Yemeni Houthi militant group on ships in the Red Sea are disrupting maritime trade as leading global freight firms reroute around the Cape of Good Hope to avoid the Suez Canal. Take a look.
Attacks by the Yemeni Houthi militant group on ships in the Red Sea are forcing freight firms to reroute in order to avoid the Suez Canal. This video was released by the Houthis on November 20th, showing armed men dropping from a helicopter and seizing a cargo ship in the southern Red Sea. The latest attacks came Monday, when the Houthis said drones were launched against 2 cargo vessels in the area. The Iran-aligned Houthi said the attacks are a response to Israel's assault on the Gaza Strip, which Israel launched after the October 7 rampage by Hamas militants. The situation has prompted the United States and its allies to create a multinational operation to conduct joint patrols in the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. In Israel on Monday, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said no group or state should test America's resolve.
In the Red Sea, we're leading a multinational maritime task force to uphold the bedrock principle of freedom of navigation. Iran's support for Houthi attacks on commercial vessels must stop.
The attacks have showed the ability of Middle Eastern paramilitary forces backed by Iran to upset global trade. Several major freight companies have begun sailing around Africa due to the danger, and there are signs the crisis is broadening to include energy shipments. The rerouting adds costs and delays, which industry analysts expect to be compounded over the coming weeks. While freight rates will likely increase on the longer voyages, the head of global freight platform Freightos said it is unlikely that rates will spike to the level seen during the pandemic. About 15% of world traffic transits via the Suez Canal, the shortest shipping route between Europe and Asia.
On Monday, the Israeli army released a video footage of its soldiers fighting in Gaza as U.S.-Israel talks on transition to the next phase of the war are underway. Residents and militants said that there were fierce fighting across the length of the Gaza Strip, with communications down for the 4th day. The video showed ground troops entering buildings and firing various weapons and flying drones, while another video allegedly shows aerial strikes on Hamas targets in Gaza. Well, this grandmother has a humble request, and that is for her twin baby granddaughters, Alma and Salma. They should be in a clean, safe room where they can be bathed. Instead, the infants are living in a tent in a camp for displaced people in Rafah in southern Gaza. Here's this human story of the Gaza conflict.
She was born into horrors. When she was born, her grandparents were killed. She was named after her aunt, who was a young woman. They have no one left. It was horrific. The mother was in complete shock when she found herself giving birth 1 minute and losing her family the next. How is this possible? It is hard for the mother. She was not shocked but depressed. The baby couldn't even breastfeed due to the extreme terror and horror she was feeling.
Conditions are extremely difficult. We don't have much to eat, so she is not getting breast milk. The baby gets scared whenever there are airstrikes. She wakes up and cries all the time due to the shaking.
As you can see, these babies don't have a tent or shelter. They haven't been washed since the day they were born. They're a month old now and have not yet been bathed. Do you see the space that they are living in?
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has won a third term with nearly 90% of the votes in an election most Egyptians felt was a foregone conclusion that the former general's previous 2 terms were marked by crackdown on political dissent is something everyone is watching out for.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has won a third term in an election where he faced no serious challenges and garnered nearly 90% of votes. According to election authorities on Monday, Sisi called the result a rejection of the inhumane war in neighbouring Gaza. Some voters said the eruption of conflict in Gaza had encouraged them to vote for Sisi, who presents himself as a bulwark of stability in a volatile region. That argument has also proved persuasive to Gulf and Western allies, who provide financial support to his government. Egyptians voted on December 10th to 12th. The state and tightly controlled domestic media pushed hard to boost turnout in the poll, which the election authority said had reached 66.8%, above the 41% recorded at the last presidential election in 2018. The election featured 3 other candidates, none of them high profile. The most prominent potential challenger halted his run in October, saying officials and thugs had targeted his supporters, accusations dismissed by the election authority. Many people in the Arab world's most populous country expressed indifference about the election, saying the result was a foregone conclusion. Reuters reporters witnessed voters being bussed into some polling stations and bags of food being handed out, while some voters said they were offered financial incentives. The state media body said any provision of money or goods in return for votes was a criminal offence. Sisi, a former general, has overseen a sweeping crackdown on dissent across the political spectrum since he led the overthrow of Egypt's first democratically elected leader, Mohamed Morsi of the Egyptian Brotherhood, in 2013.
Republican frontrunner Donald Trump declared plans for the largest deportation in American history if re-elected in 2024. During a Reno rally, he labeled President Joe Biden as low IQ individual and the worst, most incompetent and most corrupt president in U.S. history. A day earlier, Trump in New Hampshire accused undocumented immigrants of poisoning the blood of our country, using language criticized and closer to xenophobic as well as echoing Nazi rhetoric. He emphasized his stance amid concerns about the record number of migrants attempting illegal U.S. border crossings.
Given the unprecedented millions of Biden illegal aliens who are invading our country, it is only common sense that when I'm re-elected, we will begin, and we have no choice, the largest deportation operation in American history. We have no. Joe Biden and the Democrat Party are incapable of solving any problem. There's not a problem they've been able to solve. Crooked Joe is a low, you know this, did you ever hear this? Crooked Joe is a low IQ individual. And he is truly the worst, most incompetent, and most corrupt president in the history of our country. In fact, Jimmy Carter is very happy because he looks like that was a brilliant administration by comparison to what you have right now.
We slip into a short break now. News and updates will continue on the other side.
Bangalore traffic is an example of something that has gone wrong with our system.
We have more than 50 flyovers in Bangalore city. If flyover is a solution to traffic problem, Bangalore should not have traffic problem.
According to TomTom Traffic Index 2022, Bangalore is ranked as the second worst city in the world when it comes to traffic.
The speed limit at the ORR is 80 kilometers per hour, but our vehicle has only moved 10 kilometers per hour.
What Bangalore needs is a surgery, but what we have been offered repeatedly are band-aids.
Only on the world's first news OTT. News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
Welcome back. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed SB 4, a new law allowing state law enforcement to arrest individuals suspected of illegally crossing the United States-Mexico border, a power traditionally held by federal agencies. The law, effective in March, establishes a new state crime for illegal entry into Texas, with penalties ranging from 180 days to 20 years in prison. Magistrate judges will mandate migrants to return to Mexico with potential 20-year sentences for non-compliance. Abbott also approved a $1.5 billion bill for border wall construction, in adding to the existing $5 billion in state funds allocated for border enforcement. Abbott has criticized President Biden for perceived tax enforcement of federal laws on illegal entry.
Biden's deliberate inaction has left Texas to fend for itself. The authors of the United States Constitution foresaw a situation when the federal government would be inattentive to states that faced challenges at their borders. And in response, they inserted Article 1, Section 10 to the United States Constitution to empower states to take action to defend themselves. And that is exactly what Texas is doing. I will sign 3 laws today to better protect Texas and America from Biden's border neglect. The first is Senate Bill 4 from the 4th special session. The goal of Senate Bill 4 is to stop the tidal wave of illegal entry into Texas. It creates a criminal offense for illegal entry into Texas from a foreign nation. I'm also signing Senate Bill 3 from the 4th special session. Senate Bill 3 adds $1.54 billion more to build more border barriers and walls like what we have here. It includes also $40 million for the Texas Department of Public Safety for border security operations and increased law enforcement presence.
In Germany, the Chancellor's government had to redo the 2024 budget because the top court said that the old spending plan broke the rules on borrowing. Olaf Scholz said that they will have to cut spending, but he promised that Berlin will still support Ukraine financially. Here's the report.
A last-minute rescue achieved here in the Chancellery after intense negotiations. So when Olaf Scholz, Vice Chancellor Robert Habeck and Finance Minister Christian Lindner announced their deal, the relief was palpable.
The most important message first. The government is sticking to its goals and we're pressing ahead with the climate-neutral transition of our industries. We're strengthening social cohesion and we're standing firmly at Ukraine's side in its defense against Russia.
To bridge the €17 billion gap in its budget for the coming year, the parties agreed to save money elsewhere by cutting climate-damaging subsidies as well as spending in some ministries and federal grants. On top of that, the coalition wants to raise money, for example by hiking the price for carbon dioxide emissions. These measures will allow Germany to reinstate its constitutional limit on public debt in 2024. Unless, Scholz said, a new emergency situation arises. For example, if things in Ukraine worsen. In this case, the Bundestag could vote to suspend the so-called debt brake again. The opposition says the government is cooking the books.
The trick is obvious. You're now spending the money you have in the Climate and Transformation Fund. You're spending the money you want to spend on transfer payments to the labour market. And then, in the middle of the year, you will tell us, well, everything we have to deal with in Ukraine is unforeseen, and now we have to review the budget decisions again. and then you'll want our support for exceeding the debt brake. We will not let you get away with this trick.
Diesen Trick lassen wir Ihnen nicht durchgehen, Herr Bundeskanzler.
The Chancellor says he wants to do without, but the rescue equipment remains within reach.
At least 111 people were killed and more than 230 people were injured after an earthquake hit the Gansu-Qinghai border region in China on Tuesday, according to reports by the state media. And rescue operations are also underway to get people out from the debris. The European Mediterranean Seismological Center had pegged the earthquake at magnitude 6.1. The Chinese state media said that the quake was registered at 6.2 magnitude. The quake occurred at a depth of 35 kilometers with its epicenter 102 kilometers west-southwest of Gansu's provincial capital city, Lanzhou. Now, official reports have been saying that there is a possibility of missing people in the quake's aftermath. Emergency workers braving the biting cold have teamed up with local personnel to expedite the search and rescue operations. Schools and highways were closed and some train services were also suspended. Rescue operations were carried out in the freezing cold. China has been seeing freezing cold temperatures, especially in the last 3 weeks. This has resulted in the rescue operations also being tough for the rescue operation personnel as well. They have to, in fact, go ahead and rescue the people who are stuck under the debris in freezing cold, and the temperatures have also upped the urgency of trying to find the survivors as soon as possible. Iran's oil minister Javed Owji confirmed that the nationwide disruption to petrol stations was caused by a cyber attack. A hacking group, Noneshke Darande or Predatory Sparrow, allegedly linked to Israel, claimed responsibility for the attack that affected 70% of Iran's petrol stations, as reported by the Iranian state TV and Israeli media. The hackers stated that the cyber attack was controlled to avoid damage to emergency services and was in response to the Islamic Republic's aggression. Israeli government spokesperson Tal Handrik declined to comment on Iran's claims. Iran's civil defense agency is investigating the cause of the disruptions. The hacker group had previously claimed cyber attacks against Iranian infrastructure. The Vatican said on Monday in a landmark ruling approved by Pope Francis that Roman Catholic priests can administer blessings to same-sex couples as long as they are not part of church rituals or liturgies.
In a landmark ruling announced by the Vatican on Monday, Pope Francis formally authorized Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. The radical shift was described as a major step forward by Father James Martin, a Jesuit priest who ministers to the LGBT community.
It's really the first time that there's been any sort of opening to blessing same-sex couples, so it's a big deal.
Monday's announcement marked another significant change made by the Pope in his effort to make the Roman Catholic Church more welcoming. But the new rule made clear that such blessings can only be administered on a case-by-case basis and only as long as they are not part of regular church rituals or liturgies. It also said that it should in no way be confused with the sacrament of heterosexual marriage. Outside St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, Martin Hardwick and his partner Andrew Gibb welcomed the news.
You know, if Jesus said love was love, then love is love, isn't it? We've been together 41 years. So, and we're married. So,
it's about time, yeah. Long overdue.
Yeah.
In Pope Francis's hometown of Buenos Aires, some residents saw the ruling as a measure to fight discrimination.
It is a paradigm shift for the Church, and the inclusion of same-sex couples is a change for the Church. As Argentinians, we feel proud that the Pope has taken this initiative, because in our country, there are laws that have been accompanying this process of transformation for several years.
Monday's ruling is bound to be opposed by conservatives, who already criticized the Pope when he hinted that an official change was in the works in October, in response to questions put forward by 5 conservative cardinals.
An explosion at the oil terminal in Guinea's capital, Conakry, killed at least 13 people and injured 178 people. The government said that the firefighters are working through the afternoon to fully extinguish the blaze.
A deadly explosion hit the main oil terminal in Guinea's capital of Conakry on Monday, a senior police officer said. The blast rocked the Kaloum administrative district. It blew out the windows of several nearby homes and forced hundreds to flee, according to a Reuters witness. A thick column of smoke was still visible after firefighters brought the fire under control. Schools were closed and people were urged to stay home. The extent of the damage to the terminal is unclear. Guinea is not an oil producer and has no oil refining capacity. It imports refined products, which are mostly stored in the Kaloum terminal and distributed via trucks across the country. The origin of the fire is unknown, the government said in a statement. An investigation will be launched to establish the cause and determine who might be responsible.
We slip into a short break now. News and updates will continue on the other side.
GPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now.
Pakistani spy agency ISI's sinister plan to target India. Training women to honey trap top civil and military officials. Counter honey trapping ops initiated by India. But gullible victims still caught in the web. Top military intelligence experts break down the web of deception. Colonel Hani Bakshi explains the phenomena of honey trap.
जहाँ पे भी आपको लगेगा, उनको लगेगा कि there is a person who is susceptible to women, who is making a lot of women friends on the social media. That is where they will make a spoof account and then start luring the person.
Colonel Pavitran Rajan decodes the psyche of the victim and the predator.
But when you go up the chain, no one enforces it to people at the top. That disciplinary regime and the security regime is not enforced at the top. And they usually have a public profile where it is much more easier to approach that person.
A News 9 special on how modern technology has added teeth to the ancient spying tactic.
Our story takes you inside Pakistan's honey trap machine.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Hello everyone, Namaskar. I'm music composer Ricky Cage. 3-time Grammy Award winner and a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. And you're watching me on First Person on News 9 Plus.
This and more, streaming now on the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Welcome back. China's economy is expected to see more favorable conditions and more opportunities that challenge the 2024 state of affairs. Now, state media said that, citing officials of the Chinese Communist Party's Finance and Economy Office, say that China would in fact see more favorable conditions to overcome its current situations.
China's economy will improve next year. That was the message from the country's ruling Communist Party during a key meeting. It expects to see more favourable conditions and more opportunities than challenges in the coming year. The official Xinhua agency provided a detailed readout of the yearly Central Economic Work Conference from last week. It's an event where top leaders set economic targets for the following year. They said macroeconomic policies will continue to provide support for economic recovery. Xinhua quoted officials as saying China's prices are low and central government debt levels are not high. But blockages do persist in the domestic economic cycle as demand, consumption and enterprise investment remain weak. Next year, party officials said China would try to move from a post-health crisis recovery to sustained consumption growth, targeting areas including smart homes, recreation and tourism. China's economy has dealt with tepid growth this year and looming concerns over its debt-hit property sector. Officials said Beijing will monitor its real estate markets and meet what it called reasonable financial needs for property companies.
Venezuela has claimed its ownership of Guyana's oil-rich Essequibo region. People in Guyana's capital, Georgetown, are worried, and this has impacted their business already. The dispute is now in the International Court of Justice. Here's the report.
Getting ready for another busy day at the market in Guyana's capital, Georgetown. Chandrauti Alfred sells fruit from Essequibo, a resource-rich part of Guyana that Venezuela claimed ownership of earlier this month.
I'm scared because that is my living. Essequibo is we live in. Because without Essequibo we cannot make it.
It is a worry that many here share, and that some say is already impacting their business.
From the time I know myself, I know Essequibo belongs to us. We just hoping to this thing settle as fast as possible, because basically if you see the Christmas mood, it is very slow. This is not the mood we normally have in Guyana.
Venezuela has long laid claim to Essequibo, refusing to accept the border drawn by an international tribunal of arbitration in 1899. In 2015, the decades-old dispute flared up again after major oil deposits were discovered off the coast of Essequibo. Venezuela's most recent claims yet another provocation.
So Venezuela is claiming all of this.
Two-thirds of the country. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is not wasting any time. Last week, he ordered the state's oil companies to issue oil extraction licenses. An attempt to distract from Maduro's own troubles at home, says Guyana's foreign minister.
This is a low-hanging fruit for Venezuela. If you go back several decades, the entire Venezuelan nation, as a nation state, they support their request for the Essequibo. Whether it's the opposition parties, they teach this from cradle to grave. So it's something that they rally around. This is a rallying point for them. And it's really about bringing everyone closer to the flag. We want to continue with good neighborly relations. And instability between two countries can affect the stability of the entire region. So we're taking it very seriously.
The dispute is now before the International Court of Justice, which has ordered Venezuela to refrain from taking any action in the region.
I would expect, and of course the presidents themselves may have other goals, that they would try to do the people of the region a favor and ensure that violence and wars in excess of what we currently experience are spared.
Caught in the middle, the locals here in Guyana hope those calls for peace will be heard.
Tensions are rising between Manila and Beijing as their ships face off in the disputed South China Sea. The standoff may lead to China's ambassador to the Philippines being expelled. What geopolitical consequences could unfold? Here is the complete story.
In the heart of the South China Sea, Philippine vessels this weekend under fire from Chinese Coast Guard water cannons. And here, a near collision between a Chinese Coast Guard ship and a Philippine resupply vessel. The Chief of Staff of the Philippine Armed Forces was on board. Long-standing maritime tensions between Beijing and Manila have ratcheted up in recent weeks, with vessels from both sides squaring off in the disputed waters, through which some $3 trillion of trade passes each year. This is where the friction's playing out. The Scarborough Shoal and Second Thomas Shoal, tiny atolls in the South China Sea claimed by both Manila and Beijing. They fall within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, in yellow here, but also within China's so-called 9-dash line, the area that China claims as its own. That's despite a 2016 ruling that Beijing's claims had no legal basis. After the latest confrontation, the Philippines said China's actions in the South China Sea, which Manila calls the West Philippine Sea, were a serious escalation.
We continue to call on China to be a responsible member of the international community and abide by its commitments, desist from undertaking actions that violate Philippine sovereignty, sovereign rights and jurisdiction in the West Philippine Sea.
But Beijing immediately rebutted the accusation, saying the Philippines was infringing on China's sovereignty.
China urges the Philippines to cease its violations and provocations, to stop its unwarranted attacks, and to refrain from acts that undermine peace in the South China Sea.
For Beijing, such acts include Manila strengthening military ties with the US, here conducting joint patrols last month. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., on the right here, has been more assertive than his predecessor in confronting China's maritime claims, leading some to fear the South China Sea, and not the Taiwan Strait, could pose the greatest threat to stability in Asia.
In recent years, concerns about regional conflict have largely centered on China's claims to here, Taiwan. But with the United States treaty bound to protect the Philippines, there are concerns any escalation between Manila and Beijing could be what actually draws Washington's hand, and not China's increasingly aggressive maneuvers around Taiwan.
What we're seeing is that the Indo-Pacific region is increasingly becoming a theater for superpowers to play their games with one another. And this is unfortunate for small countries or weaker countries who have legitimate national security interests to protect and defend.
The South China Sea is yet another flashpoint in a region marked by geopolitical friction. The latest confrontation between the Philippines and China, a stark reminder of the delicate balancing act all parties in the region must perform.
Hollywood actor Jonathan Majors was found guilty of assaulting his ex-girlfriend in a car by a New York jury. Soon after the verdict, Disney dropped Majors from future projects too. The jury of 6 convicted the 34-year-old after a 2-week trial. Majors faces up to a year in prison and is set to be sentenced on February 6th. Major's lawyer claimed his innocence, stating the ex-girlfriend attacked him and falsely accused him. The actor had filed a complaint against her, leading to her arrest, but the case was later closed. Majors faces professional fallout, being dropped by his management, PR firm and advertisers after the arrest. Disney-owned Marvel promptly removed him from the future projects, including the 2026 release Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. A black and blue evening dress worn by the late Princess Diana has fetched $1.1 million at an auction, breaking the record for the highest price paid for one of her gowns, according to Julian's Auctions in Los Angeles. The ballerina-length dress designed by Yaquiz Azaguri was first worn by Diana in Florence in 1985 and later photographed during a visit to Vancouver. The dress, along with matching illustrations, sold for over $1 million, setting a new world record. The auction also featured other memorabilia, including a pink chiffon blouse worn by Diana for her 1981 engagement portrait, which sold for over $380,000. A heartwarming story unfolds as a bride, adhering to the Bulgarian Muslim tradition, proudly embraces her heritage by painting herself white. Her act of preserving cultural customs captures attention and admiration.
Шмитката играеш, а нагоре дори стигнат. Чакай да изпълнявам.
Съм присъствал на такова пяване на гимн. Сигурно съществуваше още. А и той жена, където на училището.
Вика, тато я отгоре заглаждаш ли? Неверата, това?
Също така като къде бе има в Пловдив същото? Къде имаш в Пловдив?
Василий, селка. Ай, селка. Ай, е.
Не сме изкарали, виж някъде не сме изкарали.
Там има други чентички.
Не, там няма нищо.
В отношение от турски мисля, че Елина означава тя идва. Тя идва, да.
Доста напрегнато. И като цяло раздялата със семейството и всичко идва в повече.
Passionate supporters of Brazilian football club Fluminense celebrated with joy as their team secured a spot in the Club World Cup final on Monday. Fans gathered at the club's headquarters in Rio de Janeiro to watch the semi-final match against Egypt's Al Ahly on a jumbo screen, erupting into chants and celebration when Fluminense scored twice at the King Abdullah Sports City in Jeddah as the Copa Libertadores champion Fluminense will now face the winner of the semi-final between Manchester City and Japan's Urawa Red Diamonds on Tuesday. The much-anticipated final is scheduled to take place on Friday in Jeddah, promising an exciting shutdown for the football enthusiasts. In Croatia, the festive season is amplified as 5 million colorful lights illuminate the town, spreading joy and holiday spirit. The dazzling displays delights locals and visitors alike, epitomizing the magic of Christmas. A man's childhood dream of having a real Christmas tree has inspired him to create a festival of lights that grows each year and now total 5 million light bulbs at his estate in central Croatia. Over the weekend, hundreds of delighted visitors from Croatia and neighboring countries strolled through the Salaj family's vast park in Grabavonica near the town of Kazma, adorned with millions of lights on trees, bushes and wooden cottages and bridges. About 100 Santas skip their customary sleighs as they arrive in boats and gondolas at Venice's Grand Canal. Now, the Santas sprinkle the water with a merry red, bringing joy and magic to the lagoon city a week before Christmas. Their presence painted the waterway in vibrant hues of red, injecting an air of joy and magic into the atmospheric setting just 1 week before the much-anticipated Christmas celebration. The sight of these Santas gliding gracefully through the historic canals not only added a whimsical touch to the cityscape, but also served as a delightful prelude to the holiday festivities, spreading cheer and creating a memorable spectacle for both locals and visitors alike. Now, in the serene Arctic Circle, Santa Claus reflects on a turbulent 2023 and expresses hopeful aspirations for a brighter new year. His message of resilience resonates, symbolizing the enduring spirit of optimism. Meanwhile, drone footage provides a stunning glimpse of Rome adorned for Christmas lights themed around peace. Now, the serene visuals encapsulate the essence of the holiday season, echoing messages of unity and tranquility in the historic city. Well, moving on, heavy rain from aftermath of ex-tropical cyclone Jasper isolated tourists frequenting towns in Australia's northeast along the Great Barrier Reef on December 18th. During the floods, a crocodile was captured from the storm drain. Take a look.
Floods caused by heavy rain in the wake of former tropical cyclone Jasper have cut off several towns in Australia's northeast. Jasper dumped months' worth of rain in the far north of Queensland, forcing thousands to flee their homes. Queensland Premier Stephen Miles told reporters the flooding was the worst he could remember.
Overnight, we have seen record-breaking rain across far north Queensland, including flash flooding. Far North Queenslanders know how to deal with natural disasters, but this one is, this level of rainfall is next level.
In inundated Ingham, a town of about 5,000, footage showed conservation officials capturing a crocodile in a storm drain by a gas station. Cairns, the gateway town to the Great Barrier Reef and home to more than 150,000 people, received about 24 inches of rain over 40 hours through early Monday. That's more than triple the December mean of just 7 inches. This French tourist was there.
It's a little bit crazy, like we didn't expect it something like this. I never see flooding like this before, and it's the first time, so a little bit impressive for me. And yeah, it's getting real, more or less.
Officials are forecasting more rain as Jasper is likely to persist through Monday. Major flood warnings have gone out, with rivers set to break records dating back to 1977. More than 14,000 properties region-wide have lost power. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said Defence forces were on standby to launch rescue and relief efforts. Australia is now experiencing an El Niño weather phenomenon, which can provoke extremes ranging from wildfires to tropical cyclones and prolonged droughts. As the northeast battles floods, Australia's southeast is on bushfire alert. Temperatures are expected to top 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit on Tuesday in some Sydney suburbs.
A volcano in southwest Iceland erupted following weeks of intense earthquake activity, as reported by the country's meteorological office. In response to the escalating situation in the peninsula region, authorities took precautionary measures, evacuating approximately 4,000 residents of the fishing town of Grindvik. Additionally, the nearly Blue Lagoon geothermal spa was closed as a safety measure. Well, that's all in this edition of the Bulletin. Stay tuned to News 9 for further news updates.
Bangalore traffic is an example of something that has gone wrong with our system.
We have more than 50 flyovers in Bangalore city. If flyover is a solution to traffic problem, Bangalore should not have traffic problem.
According to TomTom Traffic Index 2022, Bangalore is ranked as the second worst city in the world when it comes to traffic.
The speed limit at the ORR is 80 kilometers per hour, but our vehicle has only moved 10 kilometers per hour.
What Bangalore needs is a surgery, but what we have been offered repeatedly are band-aids.
Only on the world's first news OTT. News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, that US market has slowed down.